And welcome to the June 12th, 2012 meeting of the Easthampton School Committee. We will begin our program. We know we have a lot to do this evening, so we're going to try to be good because it's all important. We'll begin with announcements. Superintendent Paul, I'm sorry. The meeting is being recorded by the Easthampton Public Access Cable Channel.
And the rest of the announcements are, the next school committee meetings are July 24th, August 14th, and September 11th. White Brick Middle School Awards Night is scheduled for June 13th. White Brick Middle School 7th and 8th grade field day is scheduled for June 14th. Center Pepin field day is scheduled for June 15th. White Brick Middle School 5th and 6th grade field day is scheduled for June 15th. White Brick Middle School Drama Club performance is scheduled for June 18th. White Brick Middle School 8th grade semi is scheduled for June 19th. White Brick Middle School 8th grade continuation and last student day is scheduled for June 20th. We have lots of exciting things on the calendar here. And now it is my great pleasure to announce the winners of the Regional Science Fair from White Brick Middle School. And I'm going to ask, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this, and then I'm going to ask these students if they'd come up so that we could recognize them, because this is truly an honor for our district and for you students. So in April, White Brick Middle School had 9 teams compete in the Regional Science Fair in North Adams, and all 9 teams advanced to the Massachusetts State Science and Engineering Fair in Worcester. White Brick Middle School had 2 honorable mentions, Nicholas Coleman and Colin LaFountain and Brian Lapario, 1 third place, Nick Connor, and 1 first place, Chloe Crabb and Anna Morrissey. And the first place winners are now being invited to the Nationals. So we are so proud of them. They've already been recognized at White Brick School. They had a special breakfast and received certificates and got recognition at White Brook, but we wanted to bring them here tonight. So I'm going to ask all of you to come up and be congratulated. Actually, I'll call your names one at a time, and then you can come up and everybody will be able to see you.
Yes.
So how about if we have Nicholas Coleman? Nicholas? No? Not here?
Oh.
Is Nicholas not here? Okay. And Colin LaFountain? Is he here? No? All right. Brian Lapario? No? Okay. So we had a 3rd place winner, Nick Connor. All right, Nick. I knew Nick was right. You have to start there and we all get to shake hands.
Just to my side, we'll all shake your hand.
Congratulations, Nick.
Nice job.
Work, Nick.
Congratulations, Nick.
Well done. Nice job.
We're so proud of you. 1 first place, so that's Chloe Crabb first. Chloe.
Congratulations, Chloe. What was it? What was your project?
Yeah, we're gonna mix this up.
Oh, yes.
Called the hype on stereotypes.
Hype on stereotypes.
Yeah, it was about gender stereotyping.
Okay.
All right.
Great. Chloe, actually some of the school committee members are wondering if you could tell us a little more about it, but if you're going to do that, you'd have to come up to the podium here.
Do you want to do it on your own or with Anna?
With, yes, let's
Right,
bring
so
your
let's have
partner.
Anna come up.
Anna Morrissey.
Anna,
Anna, you gotta shake hands first.
Congratulations, Anna. Congratulations.
Nice job.
Congratulations, Anna.
Congratulations, Anna.
All right. Yeah, I want to hear about
Okay,
this.
so if you girls would just stand behind the podium, you've got a little microphone there, and you could just give us a little brief description of your project.
All right, where are your cards? My cards are over there, but I think we can do this without the cards. Would you like to state the question? What was it again? Okay, it was, our question was, how will the age of an observer affect their perception of an infant's gender when the infant has gender-suggestive toys? In this case, we used a teddy bear, blocks, cars, and a doll. We used 5th and 8th graders as our subjects, and then we tested them by showing them the pictures and asking them to guess the gender. We assumed that hypothesized that the 5th graders would be more stereotypical. For example, they would guess that the baby with the doll was a girl, etc., and other stuff like that. It turned out that our hypothesis was correct, and from our data, we made the conclusion that the 5th graders were more stereotypical
Than
than the 8th graders.
Okay, interesting project.
Very interesting.
Did you check this on any 4th graders that you know? Did they get?
We were planning to expand our, I keep on thinking of them as victims. I don't know what else to call them.
Subjects, yeah.
Subjects. From like preschoolers to high schoolers and maybe our grandparents, but
Yeah, we didn't have time to do that, so we
Yeah.
just did 5th and 8th graders at our own school.
And where are the nationals now?
Well, we're filling out a survey online.
6 pages.
Yeah,
Fine.
it's 6 pages.
It's an application. I
And
think.
if we are picked, like there's 6,000
Oh.
applicants right now, they are gonna narrow it down to 30 people, and then those people will get a free trip to Washington D.C.
So you don't automatically,
Yeah, we don't
Go to-
automatically get in. We have to fill out the survey, and then
Isn't there like a
They're
cash
eligible.
prize?
they'll
too?
you're eligible.
we're
for
eligible
that.
right now.
Okay,
yes.
great. Good luck.
Well, thank you very much. We're so proud of all of you. Oh, yes, Nick, would you like to come up and tell us about your
Yes, I
project?
want to hear Nick.
So, my project's name was Skiing on the Slippery Slope, Does Length Matter? And my question was, will the length of a ski affect the downhill speed of that ski? So, I had 3 different lengths of skis, and I measured out a 200-foot long straight stretch of slope on 2 different trails. At Berkshire ski area, they were the ones who allowed us to do this, and so I did 5 runs on each stretch with each set of ski on both stretches of slope, and we averaged those times. Then I converted those to feet per second using a mathematical equation. Then I converted those to miles per hour to make it easier to understand. So my hypothesis was that the middle ski length of a set of skis would go downhill because it would have a proper balance of weight and surface area. But in my data, it showed that that was incorrect, and as ski length increased, my downhill speed always increased, which disproved my hypothesis.
Say that last sentence again, as your,
So as the ski length increased, my downhill speed also increased, and that disproved the hypothesis.
oh, interesting.
What do you think accounts for that?
Well, pretty much the slide effect, which is caused by the pressure of the weight of the ski on the snow. So that kept getting greater and greater as the ski length increased.
Because you had the same weight distributed out over a longer. Is that
No, it kept getting lighter.
Okay.
So as more length was added, and I know I mentioned surface area, but because we use shape skis, it's curved, which would be practically impossible to find the area of that. So we used the weight distribution, and that kept getting lighter as the length increased, and that disproved my hypothesis.
Wow. Was the skier, the person, the same for all of the runs?
Yes.
So the weight of the skier may be a variable?
No, I tried not to make that a variable.
Okay,
So
all
by
right,
keeping it the
great.
same.
All right.
Thank you, very
Thank you.
interesting.
I have to add that this took place at the Worcester Technical High School at 8:30 in the morning on a Saturday after all these students and some of the chaperones got back from the DC trip at 1 a.m., just a few hours previous to that, so.
So they deserve a special commendation for
Right.
that.
Right.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank
Do
you
wanna
all,
tell
yeah.
them that they don't need to say?
Very interesting.
Yes, I'll let you know that as riveting as the rest of the evening is going to be, and I actually think there's some things on here that are fairly significant. I know that you have a lot on your plate, so if you want to slip out now, no one will call you out as you're departing. We'll miss you.
Can slip
I know
quietly
Chloe
away.
in particular wants to stay for as long as she can. Nope.
So how was?
Thank you for coming.
Thank you all. So fun. While we're on that subject, how was the 8th grade trip? You guys had
The
displays?
trip was great. There were 3 buses filled with students, and I want to say for every 4 students, there was an adult chaperone. And the students acted very respectfully in the displays. And these are 8th graders, and they'll be 8th graders, but when all is said and done, they were enjoyable. I had a great time. I went. And we went to, one of my favorite things was the changing of the guard at the Arlington Cemetery, and the students were asked to dress respectfully, and they did, and they didn't make a peep, and as they have been in the past, we were all very proud of them, how they acted, and it was a wonderful thing to see anyway, but they were all impressed. I think that was a lot of their favorite thing too. I think Madame Tussauds Wax Museum was by far their favorite. But outside of that, I think changing the guard was.
Wow, that's great.
That's neat.
Thank
a lot of
you.
fun.
Nice to have a firsthand account here.
Yeah.
All right, we have 2 more. Are we announcements? Yes?
Oh,
No?
yes, sorry.
That's okay.
I got carried away here. Too excited about those awards.
That's terrific.
This year's Massachusetts Superintendent Award was presented to Elizabeth Bordeaux, but speaking of exciting awards, that was wonderful to be able to present that to her. And this year's Principal Award was presented to David Tauscher, so congratulations to them as well.
Can you explain just a little bit about what those awards recognize?
The Massachusetts Superintendent's Award is recognized for excellence in academic achievement. It's an award that is sponsored by the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents. And Principal Perrone, you want to talk about the Principal's Award?
Yeah.
Please, sure.
The Principal's Award is actually given for any reason. It could be a specific instance of a challenging life that a student has had in school, and they've overcome that challenge and persevered and excelled. It could be really for any reason, academic or non-academic. It could be a specific fundraiser that they created and ran with and took to just great heights. In this instance, it was a recognition of a student who faced personal challenges in his life and really overcame those challenges and succeeded at a high level through his participation in band and in the drama department. And so David was certainly deserving of the award, and he's a fine young man. He's going to do well no matter where he goes in this life.
And do we know what's next for these 2 folks? I think we heard from one of them on Friday evening. Yes?
Friday we did. David, I know he wants to take his music and make it have an impact, have an effect, a positive effect out there in the world somewhere, and that's what he has talked about doing.
Terrific.
Thanks.
He was visibly surprised, which
Yes, he was. That's a good thing.
Yeah. 2 other quick announcements. Does anyone else have other announcements? I had 2 quick ones just to add. One, this Thursday, I'm not sure if it's at 6 or at 6:30 p.m., you'll get one last chance to see and witness the outstanding scholarship produced by the High School We the People team and I apologize, it's been a whirlwind since graduation, so I don't know whether it's the community presentation or if it's the community, I know that they're going to be...
I think it's a menu of things.
Right, and I forget what the official title is, but it's in the Boynton Theater, the Little Theater in the high school, and I encourage anyone who has not had the opportunity to enjoy the outstanding work done by these 9 young men and women that they come and get a glimpse. And then the last announcement I want to make was just by way of...
What time Thursday?
I'm not sure whether it's
6:30 to 8.
Is it 6:30? Thanks.
Yes.
6:30 to 8, and it will be showing some of the pictures of the trip.
Right, and also some of their scholarship as well, right?
Mhm.
Right, thank you. Was I even close on the title? Isn't it, it's got some name
I can tell you
every...
because I posted it right outside my door.
Yeah,
Is it called the Glory Days, or did I make that up?
No, that was
That was
the
the other
That was the other one.
Sunday evening.
We the People Community Presentation.
Community presentation. Okay, good. So we're close.
Videos, student presentations from the competition, overview of the trip, and local history presentation on the Constitutional Convention.
Yeah, that's a special. Any of them who happen to be listening know that that is particularly important, that they do the presentation on the Constitutional Convention. We have a running challenge there. You might also learn about the difference between horizontal and vertical federalism, which I'm still coming to master at this stage. The second announcement that I want to make is just by way of congratulations to everyone who was involved. I think ultimately I don't know where between Dr. Perrone and Superintendent Follensby, but I suspect that Dr. Perrone had to make a judgment call on Friday about graduation. Graduation was held outside, and you all were there, and some of you may have been there. It was a terrific evening. The students were eloquent. They were brilliant in their artistic creativity. They showed great heart and great spirit in honoring a classmate who couldn't be here to graduate because we lost Mike Gagne 10 years ago, and they did an extraordinary job in honoring his memory and his legacy and thrilling his family. And I just think it was, I was just energized in every possible way by that whole experience Friday night. So I want to thank you for helping be the maestro of the evening and getting it all to work flawlessly. There was not a hitch through the whole thing, right? Flawless.
It was spectacular, and it was Dr. Perrone and his staff. I believe the idea originated with Dr. Perrone. Wanted to bring it outdoors again. I guess it had been done outdoors in the past, and but a number of staff, so many staff, were participating in what made that such a special, spectacular evening. That was really. I know others I've talked to, I went home and I just felt good about that all weekend. It was just such an amazing evening, and we just express our thanks to everyone at the high school for all the work that you put into making that such a special event for the Easthampton Public Schools. So thank you, Dr. Perrone, and
Thanks
your
to Ms.
staff.
Rowe for their class advisor.
Yes,
She's here,
absolutely.
so she did an
We're going to
awesome
get to
job
see
with
her
them.
later. Yeah.
Terrific work done.
Yeah, it was
done all the way
wonderful.
around.
It was wonderful. Bonnie wanted to
If
say
I
something.
could add to, I'm very lucky in that I have someone in the high school, middle school, and the grade school. And what night was the enrichment presentation?
Last night.
That was last night. And that was a great job by Whitebrook Middle School enrichment students. And I'm not saying the name of the program properly.
Pathways.
No, it has that, but it's the enrichment program, and it was Molly Savan.
Right.
Who's
Yep.
been being the coordinator for that program this year, who did such a phenomenal job.
And the students did a great job. They had the same trifolds as the science projects, and they could explain their projects, why they chose them, and explain them in great length. I talked to your daughter for a little while, and she was a pleasure to talk to. And that just was a great job by Whitebrook. And then today, I went and saw my third grader put on his recorder concert over at Maple, as I imagine Center and Pepin third graders doing the same thing. And I was just so impressed with Ms. Cloutier over there and the students and their enthusiasm. So it's really just been a feel-good week for me that I just want to share with everybody. Again, Easthampton's just doing a great job with their kids.
And tonight is the display night and presentation night for the enrichment program at Center Pepin.
Yes.
For those students for that enrichment program.
And tomorrow Maple.
Molly
Tomorrow,
did a great job in all of those, and kids are very excited.
So many exciting and wonderful
Yes.
events these last few weeks. So take
So-
advantage of them.
I hope you all brought sleeping bags, because we had scheduled 1 minute for announcements tonight, and we plan on sticking to this pace and ratio for the rest of the evening.
Good stuff going on.
And our faculty will be so happy they chose this evening to be here at school committee.
We're normally not this far behind right off the bat. One more announcement. The school committee would like to thank Tim for helping do the technical production this evening. The Easthampton Public Access Cable Station channels 5, 19, and 20. It's always looking for volunteers, and if anyone is interested, you can contact Greg, and he will welcome your assistance in taping city government meetings. His phone number is 413-203-1414. 1360. Correspondence. Oh, you're just showing off. See how efficient I can be? Okay, fine. Gifts. Can we get a motion? Someone read that for us?
Yeah, I move to accept with gratitude and appreciation the following gifts. Easthampton Elementary PTO for $2,000 to help defray the cost of student materials at Center Pepin Schools. And the following donations to the Easthampton High School Dog Show: $50 from Dances with Dogs Daycare, $25 from Easthampton Animal Hospital, and $125 from Vesh Group. And the following donation to the Easthampton High School Art Show: $50 from Brian Delaney.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Now we're rolling. Is there anyone who is here this evening who would like to speak on a matter that is not already on the agenda? Going once. Okay. There will be time later for speaking on agenda items. So we have now a pair of presentations. Yes?
We do, and I'm very pleased to ask Sean Sheehan, high school science teacher, and Robin Rowe, high school media librarian specialist, to come forward. They collaborated on a project, the title of which is Project-Based Learning in the 21st Century Classroom. And I asked them to come and give this presentation because I think it gives a really nice view for you of how we integrate technology into instruction. Sean has certainly been at the forefront of this movement. He's been very motivated and excited and eager to use technology and to incorporate it into his lessons. And Robin Rowe as well has worked with a number of other faculty in addition to Sean in terms of this integration of technology into instruction. So tonight they're going to show you a little bit of what it looks like in the classroom, the kinds of things that we're doing with technology. And as you know, that was a piece of our override request. And so I also wanted you to see, why we believe that this is so important to have adequate technology and adequate funding in an ongoing way for technology in our schools. So I will let them do their presentation for you.
Okay, our project that I did with Robin Rowe, our library teacher at the high school, and not only myself, but a lot of other teachers at the high school, use Robin as a resource to add in higher level thinking, add in technology, basically to our project. So she is an awesome resource to have here at the high school. So I'd like to introduce her, and would you like to
Thank you.
say a few things?
Sure. As a library teacher, part of my job is to assist teachers to implement technology into the curriculum, and working with Sean provides me an opportunity to try new technologies that I would bring to other less tech-savvy teachers. I try to look at current projects and suggest ways by using the new technologies, these projects can become more student-directed and incorporate the higher order thinking skills of analysis, synthesis, and creation. Today, while I was talking to students about my 8th grade presentation, they said, just make sure that you tell them it's different than Whitebrook. You don't just come in for books and do work, you actually learn in here, which made me say, okay, I can come back next year now. It was just really cool. So that's just one of the things that I do. The thing I like to do the most with the teachers at the high school is to work collaborative with them, and Sean and I do quite a bit together.
Okay, so this project was on alternative energy, and I had the students investigate 6 controversial issues on different alternative energy sources. Some of them are not necessarily alternative, but things to think about, because energy is something that we're starting to think about in terms of higher gas prices, higher fuel prices, and it's something that our kids are going to have to worry about and think about when they become voters. So one of the reasons why I assigned this project was to get kids to actually think about what they're reading. So they had to use higher level thinking skills to be successful in this project. They had to analyze their resources and develop opinions. So they had to synthesize what they're reading, and they had to defend an opinion that they may not have necessarily agreed with, because I did assign the topics, I did assign who they were working with, so I did put a few challenges in front of them. So I didn't necessarily let them work with whoever they wanted to work with. I didn't give them topics that they necessarily liked, and they just had to deal with it, and they did an awesome job. So one team would actually support the energy source, and the other team would actually be against it. So the first topic here is nuclear power. And what's great about nuclear power is it doesn't emit any carbon dioxide. So it does have its drawbacks in terms of radioactive waste, but it was something that, you know, I had the students think about. How would, you know, they feel about building a nuclear power plant here in Easthampton? A lot of you might be cringing about that. So one group would be for that project, the other group would be against it. The second thing was to develop a series of wind turbines on the Mount Holyoke Range. And I know some people may not feel too great about that, because some people had issues with some of the antennas going up on the mount, on the range there and affecting the scenery of the mountains. So I actually had students do some research on that. Also, a biomass plant. That's ongoing controversy that's occurring where I live in Springfield and in Greenfield and in Russell, Massachusetts. So I had students do some work on that. So one team actually supported that. The other team tried to sell lake officials on not supporting building a biomass plant. The other one would have local government support or financially support a hydrogen fuel cell company building hydrogen fuel cell cars. So I had students do research on that. The next one would be building a coal power plant. And I know coal isn't necessarily alternative, but there is new technology to reduce emissions. And the final piece here would be geothermal energy. And I know that in this part of the country you can't, you know, build one of those plants, but their topic was to actually support a company out in California that would be building one of these plants in turn for reduced energy costs in terms of electricity. So students were directed to Moodle. So at the high school we have a Moodle server, and Moodle stands for Modular Object-Oriented Dynamic Learning Environment. A lot of colleges use this system for distance learning. So I instructed students for one of their homework assignments to look at this video on how to link their current email address to Google so that they could share documents that they're going to be creating in Google Docs, which changed its name as we were doing this project to Google Drive. So it was a little confusing when they looked at the screen and all of a sudden they saw Google Drive. What's this? But they basically made active reading templates, which is in a word processing program that Google provides for free, and also a PowerPoint presentation as well. And students worked either alone or in dyads. I again assigned the topics, and the students filled out an active reading template. So this covers the Common Core curriculum in terms of students actually interpreting nonfiction text and actually developing a deeper meaning of the text. They also did a bibliography and a presentation, and they shared their documents with their team members. So as they were editing their documents, the other team member could see their edits live, and they also shared their documents with both Ms. Rowe and myself, so we could also see what they were doing, and we could also provide feedback on what they were doing.
Sean, could I stop you just for a minute, and could you talk a little bit more about how they shared the documents back and forth? And I noticed, I think you're carrying your iPad with you.
I am carrying my iPad. That's like for some notes, but what they did. Yeah, we have that like in another piece. Yeah, that will be coming up.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the resources that we used for the kids. We did direct them to the library databases. This is my library web page that's up there on the slides, the database page. And for this, we directed them to use Facts on File, which is a paid subscription database that we subscribe to. And the two databases within those databases that we asked them to look at specifically were the science database and the controversial topics database, which had plenty of information, current information on their topics. We also directed them to the Gale Group databases, which is InfoTrack and Gale Group. Those are a series of databases that are provided by the state via my license and as a librarian. And again, there was opposing viewpoints and science-based databases there that we directed them to use. Now these databases keep us current and provide us authentic academic resources for students to use, which will be expected from them in college. And it will give them an opportunity to become familiar with a database and what a database is compared to the free web, and to be able so that when they do go off to college, they're going to be able to say, oh, I've seen this before, it's not that new, I'm going to be familiar with it. So, you know, we like the databases. It does keep our curriculum right up there with the current times. And then a lot of my portal they were sent to, where I had a lot of the current local things, because many of these topics are being discussed locally. So that's where that's where we directed them. Me again, right?
Yep.
The active reading template I developed with Carl Sear, who used to be an English teacher at the high school, a few years ago when we were looking at MCAS scores and the need to increase our students' ability to understand nonfiction, or as the Common Core calls it, informational text. And so when you'll see an example of the reading template and how the students used it, and I work with the freshmen a lot, and we have a version of this which is simpler for them to use, and then as they get to this point where they're juniors and seniors, this template helps them to think about their source. How is it important? What are they using it for? Is it valuable to them? They get to evaluate it as they go along. So they're evaluating their sources using the template for content, bias, the currency, and its authority. They sort through and gather the evidence to support their thesis, and then they ask questions that are needed to complete their research more effectively. And that's what the template guides them to do. And show them.
Yep. So these are the different questions that the students had to answer. So the first piece is basically, why is an article that you're including in this project, why is it important to your presentation? So they had to answer that on the Google template, which we'll show you. They also had a notes field. So this is where they threw in any notes that they, or any important information that they would need to actually do their presentation. And I'll show you in the next slide what that looks like. And vocabulary. There's a lot of technical terms in science, and any new field, there's new jargon. So I had students address the vocabulary, and I told them that, don't, be surprised when you're standing up doing your presentation, that we are going to ask you, like if you say a strange word, we're going to ask you about that word, and we're going to expect you to be able to define that word. So that kept them on their toes. And any clarifying questions. So if a student had a question with their presentation, we were looking through these projects all along. So for some of them, I was able to answer the questions, or I would send students to another resource that would answer their question for them. So this is basically what one of the templates looks like. So you'll see the first question there. We have a lot of this filled in. And this was
wind power.
This was wind power.
You can also see at the top that they have to put their entire citation. So of course I always talk to them about citation and how to do that. So they've got their citation already done right at the top there, and that will just translate into a citation slide for them later. So everything's together for them in one spot.
And then on the next slide here, we have the vocabulary piece. So again, we said any vocabulary words that they never ever encountered, we had asked them to define those. And this is more into the sharing feature of Google Docs. Google Docs, in order to share, like students would click this button right here, they would just add in the email address of their team members and Ms. Rowe's email address and my email address, and we would have full access to the document. We would be able to make some comments, and I'm sorry about that. So these would be some comments that we would make. So for a particular PowerPoint, as the students were creating this PowerPoint, we gave them instantaneous feedback so that they could actually modify their project as they were going along. And as you saw in the next slide that I went to, the rubric is a little bit complicated. So it allowed them, or it allowed me to clarify to them what I was assessing them on.
It's real-time assessment, which is really important. Rather than assessing a finished product, we're assessing as we go, and it's editing as we go, so that then when they get up to present, they were really ready, and they had everything that they needed to have to be able to do a good job.
So on the next slide here, this is the actual rubric that we use to evaluate students. So we're evaluating on how well they took that information, like their knowledge and comprehension of the topic. Were they able to defend their position and to also look at the opposing position and to address that as well. So they had to use higher level thinking skills, knowledge and comprehension, analysis, evaluation. And we also evaluated how well they did speaking, standing up in front of a crowd. A lot of students don't like public speaking, so this gave an opportunity to practice that skill. And we also asked that their presentation be between 8 to 10 minutes. And after both groups presented their information, there was a question-answer period. So it was a quasi-debate. It wasn't quite a debate, but the opposing team would always have a lot of questions for the team members that presented. And it was actually very entertaining.
It was very
and I really liked the debating that went on. So that was awesome. And we also evaluated how the slideshow looked. So we wanted the background to complement any text or graphics that was displayed on there. And we also wanted a very graphical interface as well. So we didn't want students to be reading from their PowerPoints. We wanted them to, basically be speaking like we are right now, and not to be reading from other resources, and to have the graphics guide them along. And if they did have text, they were allowed to have some text on their slide, but to make sure that was readable, and to also cite any of their resources as well. And so this is an example here, and this is like the first time or the second time they've tried to use the speakers here, so we're gonna try this out. If not, then I'm gonna just direct this mic here, so I'll be the guinea pig for this. So this is an actual presentation that Grayson Nash gave me permission to play. So this is just a piece of it. So this is about 1 minute.
I'm supposed to be telling you about why hydrogen is not the answer in powering vehicles. So here we go. Alternative fuels. Everyone knows these days that everyone's trying to get alternative fuels to save the environment, as fossil fuels, as we know, have been putting off harmful emissions into the environment, which is not helping the atmosphere in the world. Some of these alternative fuels include biodiesel, ethanol, electricity, and hydrogen. Hydrogen, the first element on the periodic table, as we all know. Everyone's making hydrogen out to be like the savior to all the car fueling problems. Like, oh yeah, it's the next big thing, as Alex would say. Pretty much, they think hydrogen can power cars, and what the key to hydrogen powering cars right now is a thing called a
Okay,
hydrogen
so
fuel cell.
the sound on this
Basically,
isn't
fuel
too
cell
well
is used
because
to
I'm getting a
produce
little
an
bit of,
electrochemical reaction in
but
which
you'll notice
oxygen
here that in the
and fuel, in this
presentation,
case hydrogen,
there's a lot of graphics in
combine
the
to
back.
make
So
an
as
electricity
Grayson is
and water, which
speaking,
ultimately can power vehicles. So that's the whole
he's having the
logic
graphic
behind
lead
hydrogen
him
cars
in
and
the
how it's
audience. So
going
he's
to
not,
work.
you know,
It all
he's
seems
not
really
reading
good,
from the
like
slideshow.
hydrogen
He is
provides
doing a little bit
no
of reading
harmful
from his
emissions
notes,
into the
but he
environment,
is,
which is
you
really
know,
good and what we
basically
need, that sounds
speaking
good. And
looking at the
but really,
audience,
the truth, the
and
hydrogens that can really provide
you
more
know,
help than hurt.
he's dressed for the
So,
occasion as well.
Here we are,
so.
first problem. Major
And the
problem right
presentation is
here
going to end
money,
right there at the money.
which
so.
goes along with developing hydrogen.
So you'll notice it's all graphical in nature. So what we try to get the students to sway away from was actually reading directly from the PowerPoint and to actually, you know, talk about their topic. So they had to really go into this well prepared. And a lot of them did a nice job on it, including some of the students that are currently in this room right now who will be giving their own presentations on something else. So Robin?
And since we did the Google Docs and presentation with Sean's class, I've already used it with a freshman class with a project called Mythology and Business Today, which we used to do a straight PowerPoint with, but we did the Google Docs and Google presentation instead this time, and it was really great. It went off very well. We could present right from my shared folder. It just was so much easier than a lot of the other things, and it took the attendance factor right out of it because it kind of takes away all that. Well, I wasn't here, or I don't have. It's on his network, and I don't have his password. You know, we've taken away all their excuses now because this is all available at home, and if you don't come in that day, you still could be working it at home, and I can also look and see when you worked on it because it comes up on my shared folder. I know you did this at night at 10 o'clock or whatever. So I think that we'll be using it a lot more and with good success, I think, in the future.
Okay, so I'd like to thank the following people. John Schott for providing the technology resources, for providing the projector and all the other equipment that I have in my room. Grayson Nash for giving me permission to use his presentation. Manuel Morales for videotaping the presentations, and also Austin Crow for videotaping and editing the presentation. So I actually have a few more presentations as well. And Ms. Clavalou for lending her video equipment and also the computer time and the students on editing the clips. So thank you very much, Eileen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Yes.
You may have said this, but how many students were in your class that were working on this particular project?
I did it with two classes. So I have one class of 16 students and another class of 21 students.
Okay.
What is the name of the class?
It's a general chemistry honors course. So I had two sections of honors chemistry. I've done this previous years. This year I modified the project. So every year I do this project, I do modify it a little bit. But I've done it with both academic and honors courses.
Sean, can you tell, did you find it easier to grade between you and Robin, grade and review and all that online as opposed to waiting for the projects to come to you?
I liked Google Docs much better because I was able to look at the projects in real time. I didn't have to depend upon a student bringing in their thumb drive, and there seems to be some glitches sometimes when students save things to devices. They bring in the thumb drive and we find that the thumb drive is either there's something wrong with it or it's corrupt. So this way, or they don't have the correct software, like sometimes they have software which I don't have. So it was much easier this time because the software was all the same.
Right.
And everyone had access. So if as long as you have a computer with internet access, you can use Google Drive, Google Docs, because it's free software.
Right.
And it works on.
So it makes it easier for you to do what you're supposed to
Yes.
be doing for the grading and the assessment and things like that.
It does, and the students, everyone graded. The students graded each other too.
Yeah.
They all had rubrics and they had a scale. So He factors in what their grades are, what we set down, and we tried to sit down and talk about the grades. I gave him my sheet that I did when I was watching the presentation. So, yeah, it was really good. It was great.
You mentioned that you had developed the active reading templates. How much revision of those are you finding that you have to do to adjust to the Common Core?
None.
So they're on. You were there ahead.
I was their librarians. We've been teaching to the Common Core for a long time before it was called the Common Core.
Right. So the teacher in me is impressed, and you know the work that I've done with Kelly Brown, where you're reinforcing that idea of using these resources in an active way, because though we may wish that they would always remember everything there was about hydrogen power, to be honest, we know they'll forget. But what they won't, we hope, forget are those types of questions and processes and approaches to working with all those resources. And I think using these templates and knowing that these templates fit with this now nationally emerging system is really terrific. So thank you for doing that with him. That's awesome.
And I just want to say that I happened to be there the day that Grayson was doing his presentation. I came over to see it in action, and it was so impressive. How articulate the students were, their presentations, their graphics, their PowerPoints, and what I also was very impressed with were the questions that the other team and the other students in the classroom asked the presenter, and how well the presenter was able to answer those questions. And I do remember with Grayson also that he came to one word that he was not sure everybody would understand in his presentation, and he stopped and described exactly what it meant. So the skills were really amazing, skills and knowledge that they were putting into place as a result of this particular project. So thank you, both of you, for coming and sharing that with us.
I just have one quick database question. I'm always interested in that. Ms. Rowe, do you subscribe to the databases, or are they?
We subscribe to the Facts on File databases, yes, and they are available across there's a database for every subject across the curriculum. It's heavy for social studies and English, but there is one for everything. And then the Gale Group databases are state-funded databases that we are allowed to have at the high school via my library license.
We as a school don't pay to then?
Not for the Gale Group license databases, but for Facts on File we do. Yes.
Good.
I like Facts on File because it's a little bit easier reading level for students, and the Gale Group and the info track I find sometimes cumbersome and a little bit harder for them to handle, especially at the freshman and sophomore level. So that by having a combination of databases that are for all reading levels, it's much more effective.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. While we're waiting for the next group to come up, I may be guilty of a leading question, but I think it's important for folks, again, to hear what Ms. Rowe just pointed out, which is that, yeah, you can keep coming. It's just transition space. I just think it's important for people to know that, again, here's another example where students at Easthampton High were already being exposed to and practicing working with an approach to reading documents that the nation is now, the governors of the rest of the nation have now decided is the good way to do it, that we were already there and that it was already being done. And I think that's, it's one of those things that just flies under the radar. So I want to mention it twice in the hope that people hear it and understand what an extraordinary education they're getting, you know, in that dimension as well at Easthampton High School, and thank Ms. Rowe for her work there. Thank you, Robin.
And now it is my pleasure to introduce our second presentation, or introduce our principal, who will tell you about this next presentation. And we're very excited to hear about this as well. So, Dr. Perone, do you want to introduce?
I do. Thank you. Before I start, I just want to take an opportunity. I really appreciate you recognizing my part in graduation. But something Sean said tonight really made me want to say that event that went off so well couldn't have happened without the collaboration and cooperation of the maintenance staff with Pete Roy and Ollie, with the faculty who gave up their preps to come out and set up chairs, you know, with the athletic director who was, when I was had rolled the dice at 4 o'clock getting anxious, we're setting up chairs in the gym just in case. The ladies in the main office and the teachers and the students that all made it happen. So I appreciate your recognition of me, but I tell you, it's all because of the group that we have at the high school and how they come together. And when Sean acknowledges the people that helped him to make that presentation with Ms. Rowe happen, like Ms. Clavalou and her use of resources, that's what Easthampton High School is all about. So thank you very much, but I just wanted to acknowledge that.
To reiterate that, and I hope that I made that point too, that, I know that it was an effort that involved so many people to put that together, and it just came out so well.
Right.
Yeah, you did a
Thanks.
great job thinking on your feet there, keeping those names in order.
Once they got mixed up.
Yeah, that was their last prank, I think.
But tonight, we are going to have our technology department led by Eileen Clavalou. She's our team leader. Mary Rogers and Charlie Reevoort are here, and they have 3 students, Adam, Christopher, Ashley Duraco, and Connor Gibbs. And this is almost the second part in the series where Minichog came and talked about what they have going on at their high school. But we want to show you what we have going on now at the high school and where we are going to be in the new high school. And it's a really exciting time to be a part of Easthampton Learning. And the learning community of Easthampton is quite excited that that building's taking the shape that it's taking. And I don't want to take up too much time. I want to just leave this off to Eileen. The technology department has worked together to put this presentation together, and we're going to have our students come up and talk a little bit about it too. So thank you very much.
Excuse me a minute.
Kind of a short
Do you need an
cord, huh?
extension
Eileen?
cord?
You have one?
Put a chair in
Should I
it
put
or
it
something?
here perhaps?
Sure, you can move that computer right under the desk up here, sure.
My battery has about 2 minutes on it, so
Yikes. Oh, okay, yeah, go for it.
I just need to plug it in.
It's the same way. Always happens at a presentation.
Okay, just gonna stick it here. That's a little better.
Just think in a year or 2, this will be voice activated. Connect to LCD projector.
The speaker cable.
Let's hope.
Did say it doesn't necessarily work all the time.
Yeah.
So
Stop on, stop
I
on.
guess so.
We'll just
Well,
use our
cer-
devices, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll be back to magic markers.
Treating technology as a regular and ongoing part of the budgetary process will make that possible.
Would be nice.
Should I now? No. You should keep this, because I'm thinking of using it on this.
I want that on the
My
screen.
own personal problems with this tonight. No, it likes to sleep and then it fakes me out. It shuts itself off. And
Now I'm getting a little concerned. because
Technology's
it's
wonderful
not
when it
showing up.
uh-oh.
Just double check something.
While they're working on that, I have something to share.
All right.
Perfect.
Okay, good.
I just wanted to kind of pick up on the comment that Peter made, when he was talking about how Easthampton High School has been doing many, many things kind of like under the radar that are actually very cutting edge, and people in other districts and other places are just starting to do things that Easthampton High School has been doing for a long time. And there's so many examples of that it just amazes me. Reading the local newspaper, I remember one time there being a big feature in the Summit on the Southampton schools adopting a program like developmental designs.
Mhm.
And it was this big spread and feature about how wonderful that is, and it sounded so cutting edge. And I read it thinking, yeah, well, as long as I've been involved with Easthampton Public Schools, which is 8 years or 9 years at the time, I thought, we've been doing it that entire time. We've had the same program in place all that time. And yet, here I'm thinking that the people reading this newspaper are thinking, wow, how impressive for Southampton. And I'm thinking, well, we're on top of it long ago. And just recently there was an article, I'll be brief, I know you're ready. There was an article in the paper talking about Amherst being on the cutting edge with their math curriculum.
Yeah. remember
And
reading the
math
same thing.
expressions. Is that the name of the curriculum?
Uh,
Math expressions?
Yeah.
Yes.
And they touted how it sounded, once again, so impressive how they're just really on top of things and how great this new curriculum is. And
It's like they
they
discovered
cited-
oil.
Right, exactly. And they cited all these districts in the eastern part of the state that are currently using math expressions. And it just sounded so impressive. And we've been there for 2 years. You know, we were doing that. It's the second year of math expressions. And so I just had to throw in that little infomercial that I find that frequently Easthampton schools are way ahead of so many other districts and so impressive in so many ways, and others often get the limelight, and it's kind of old news for us. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Thank
End of
you,
story.
Deb. Thank you. Good
All right,
promo.
good evening.
Back to the main.
The technology department has three main components. So we have applied technology right now, which is represented by Charlie.
Right behind you.
Hi, Ray. Skulking back there.
Told you I'd be right behind you.
And Mary Rogers covers the business end of it, web design, so she also covers creative aspects, but things like, that have to do with international business, et cetera, she covers quite well. And we have a few students here who are in several of our classes, right? So some of the main things that we focus on are critical thinking, problem solving, communication, and collaboration, mostly through project-based learning. So this is Mary's area. So would you guys like to discuss this as I go through the slides? Just
Hello.
give me a signal.
My name is Connor Gibbs.
Adam Visper.
And one class that the two of us are both in is the computer programming classes at Easthampton High School. We also help work with publications in the yearbook, but more on those type of classes later on. We're going to talk about programming right now, as well as some of the other classes that Mary works with. So we have my note cards. We have technology, working with business and computer science mostly. And in the technology department, we use types of technology in order to keep pace with invention, innovation, problem solving techniques, mechanical processes, and work methods of production.
Do you want me to move along, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, actually, I am
Yeah,
talking
you got
fast.
it.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, note card problems. That's how the world works sometimes. So
The old way.
one of the classes that I'll briefly talk to you about is business technology, where we have classes that are used to help with accounting, working with databases, as well as management of those databases, and business in the international world. Business technology programs at Easthampton High School are designed to help students with competency skills, as well as developing a career in a business field. And as I said, working with database management, accounting, and international business primarily.
The international business this is a international business accounting, and with wood they plan to preserve and improve Stonehenge. Go ahead. This is the pre-AP and the AP Computer Science class. We're both enrolled in the AP Computer Science class. This is actually our class. Myself, one of my friends there, one of our colleagues there, Kyle, and Thomas, who was a senior who recently just graduated. We're there working in GridWorld, which is a Java program. It's based off Java, but it creates more of a 3D sort of perspective of this. Yeah, this is, it's just the fundamentals of Java.
And I also want to note, I am enrolled in the AP Computer Science program, but I'm also working on that class on the side. And I know that at Easthampton High School, sometimes schedules can bring limitations, and I know that the guidance department is always working to have students aim for more work on the side, whether through college programs throughout the summer. I'm also in one of those programs, but that's not for tonight, as well as me being able to take another technology course on the side of my standard 4 classes for this semester. Now, one of the great opportunities that AP Computer Science has brought to me through the earlier programming class of last year, as well as again this year, is this program through UMass Amherst, which is called iJava. And this is, iJava it's a textbook online with Robert Mall, and students are able to use that textbook and get the experience of an online class. And then from there are questions and small assessments in order to work on the knowledge that has been gained through that online course. And then I know in the past we've had the option to take an examination for college credit if work with iJava has been brought to such a point of excellence and hard work. And I know working with iJava, it's been a great interface. It's not a standard of most classes. I don't always get to work online and take a quote-unquote college-level course, as this is provided through UMass Amherst. And it's just a great experience, and I do think that more students should have the opportunity to try an online class of some form as those become more accessible, more common as you go on through your education. And I do believe the iJava program is excellent, and it's been great to have this program available at Easthampton High School for now the past 2 years. And as you can see here, we have 2 of our students in the computer science courses working at the smartboard. We use smartboard technology in some of our classes, and we use it to assess problems, work with different programs. I know in a past slide we had Grid World, where there was also problem solving at the board, working with pre-created programs as well as those that students can create themselves. It's very exciting for students.
In this slide, you will see this is a web design one. Most people would think that it goes towards Ms. Clavel's side, but this web one goes towards Ms. Rogers though. This is using more Adobe side of this, getting away from Java. It's this program that she's using Adobe Photoshop, which also is helping out in the process. She also uses Adobe Dreamweaver, which is more of a photo type of fixing creative way. In that class that you can take for web design 1, you will learn web design, of course, graphic design, animation design, which one of those animation ones we actually use in programming. I'm most certain it would be Alice in that one for animation design, and e-commerce as well.
And then in Web Design 2 is where we get into e-commerce, where students are able to work with business structures and get into topics more relevant to economics, whereas students will be able to begin working with like marketing in the digital world. We also have retailing on the internet as one of the bullets we can apply to this course, as well as e-commerce on a global scale and the careers that one can obtain and take back from this type of course and its material for study.
The financial literacy portion of this is when it's the part that you're learning more of the financial part of basically planning and credit, bankruptcy, using some of the techniques that lawyers use in this part of class. It's basically, there's a personal finance class at school. It's basically building up from that in a way, using math and your own way of getting up to a higher point of personal finance.
And then what's to come from our technology department on Ms. Rogers' side of things? We'll still continue with Java and the e-commerce, technology with information, programming, web design. But with Java, I can also note that we are extending forward to technology in regard to robotics. And I think that's a really exciting move for us as we develop skills for progress to be made in the 21st century. That's today. We're talking about progress and future today. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, today. And these classes are all very exciting to be a part of. And I know that taking these classes, it's an essential point to improve our future. Thank you.
Excellent job.
Ashley
I have our next speaker who will
All I have to do is read.
take it away.
So we have a short video clip. I'm a little concerned about being able to hear the video clip.
Where we need to go from here.
This is movies the way they used to be.
It was a catchy tune, too.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what the movie is about?
Sure, but I'm being short-scripted tonight. There you go.
It's extraordinary. It's going to get kids excited. I'm tapping my feet. I wish I'd shown it to my children when they were little. It keeps their attention.
Well, you did a great job in the video.
They take readily available video and create ads, campaigns, and public service announcements. Thanks to executives Richard Rabbins, John Belchers, Harbaldeep Singh, and Ian Brower for contributing their creative talents for the cause of STEM.
STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. It's a collaboration of teachers and different interdisciplinary courses so that kids can learn 7 of the things that they need. Ash, you're going to do the 7 survival skills. Basically going from what we have at the high school now, a wood shop and a metal shop, into a fabrication lab that's going to incorporate woodworking machines, metalworking machines, plastic working machines, computer-aided design, numerically controlled machines, vacuum presses, and any type of tool, system, or process that we can use to get the kids excited about taking things apart, putting them back together, and figuring out and articulating how they work.
The design process. Recognize and define the problem. Brainstorm, develop preliminary solutions and designs. Refine designs and create a design solution.
STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. There's the little acronym. Yes, design and innovation are about exploration and experimentation and accepting that your first solution may not be right. Creativity is about challenging your assumptions. By Dr. Tina von Strom, the London Business School.
Student survival skills for the 21st century. Critical thinking and problem-solving skills. System thinking, analyzing how parts of a whole
Interact with each other. How to reason effectively. How to interpret information and draw conclusions. How to make judgments and decisions. How to analyze and evaluate evidence and alternate beliefs and points of view. To be able to solve problems. Next. Read the dark one up.
Ability to collaborate and to lead by influence, not authority.
Students will value the contributions made by team members. They will work effectively and respectively with diverse teams. They will be able to make compromises to achieve a shared goal, and they will share the responsibility for the collaborative work.
Agility and adaptability.
Two things I pride myself on. That they'll be able to view failure as an opportunity to learn, because the first solution might not be the right one or necessarily the best one. And to reevaluate and to redevelop and design is where these kids need to go nowadays. They must be flexible and they must adapt to change, something adults naturally have in their chemical makeup, so we're trying to teach the kids.
Effective oral and written communication skills.
Absolutely, be able to utilize multiple media and technologies to listen effectively and to communicate clearly.
Fluent in accessing and analyzing data.
To be able to decipher meanings from that plethora of facts and figures in the Excel spreadsheets that they generate from testing and evaluating, and to be able to assess and evaluate that information. I think there's one more.
And the curiosity and imagination to innovate.
To use a wide range of idea creation techniques and to act on creative ideas. Do you know that many of the things that the kids are learning in school today will be obsolete by the time they're on the job market?
They actually tell me that all the time.
No. And I'm a positive person, and I'm trying to be optimistic in this. What we need to do is we need to give the kids these 7 survival skills, the tools so that they can operate in an ever-changing world. They'll be at what? iPhone 6 or 7 or 8 in a few more years, and they will be accessing that equipment and those technologies. They will need to keep pace with the structures that they'll be encountering. One more.
Initiative and entrepreneurship skills.
Absolutely. They'll not only be able to not only have to work in teams to collaborate, but they'll have to be able to work independently and to set goals for themselves and to be self-directed at some point in time, or not, and to work within a system. Actually, technology is a system of systems that work independently or together and are constantly evaluated for performance and the things that work and the things that don't work. It's that design cycle that is a big wheel. Once they reach the conclusion, or once they reach a conclusion, they need to take stock of what worked, what didn't work, how effective was it, did it create or generate more pollution than it did solve problems, et cetera, and then be willing to take it to the next level. Almost done. Some ideas for these STEM courses at Easthampton High School. Next year, there won't be a wood technology 1 and 2 per se. We are going to work by calling the new courses design and engineering technologies. There'll be a 1 and a 2, and some of the things that we can offer. Not only next year, but in the future will be a Design Tech 1 class, a Design Tech 2, a technical drawing, engineering and design class, hopefully to lead to some of the things in the new high school with electronics, robotics, computer-aided design, and numerically controlled machinery.
Okay, so this next part is the area that I work with, media arts. And unfortunately, my student just graduated and she forgot. So here we are. Luckily, however, I also have all three of these fine students in my publications class, so they haven't had my multimedia or graphic arts, but they can at least speak to publications. So Charlie and I share this design process in everything we teach. So it's all about learning how to be creative, learning how to spur creativity, how to get the mind working. So what I thought I would do is just show, talk about some of these 21st century skills that are so vital for everyone, and just look at some of the problems that I give in my classes. So this is a very beginning one in graphic arts where you take 2 letters, and your challenge is to create a series of 10 images that use just 2 letters each that fill the page in a visually interesting way. And part of the challenge is to take the meaning out of the letter. So they're spent all that time learning how to read, and now we're throwing it out and just looking at the design and the way the design fills the space. And it's all about space. In multimedia, one of the projects I give is to interview yourself in 10 years. So they can dress up, they can do whatever they want to be themselves in 10 years, because I find a lot of kids have a really hard time, and we all do. Who can see ourselves in 10 years? It's a challenge. So they're forced into thinking about it and thinking about what it is they're going to be. What do they want to be? So here I talk about interviews with a computer scientist, one really horrified student looking at his homeless self, so he faced a fear, and then someone else transforming herself and going from being a total slacker into the person of her childhood dreams. So it's always interesting to see what the kids come up with. Critical thinking and problem solving. I think everything I do is about critical thinking and problem solving. So here we had a project recently in graphic arts too, where kids had to create a packaging solution for a brand new product that they invented or created, or an existing product. So they had some great solutions and they had a great time. They actually make the packages. They do a design brief which analyzes the problem, helps them figure out their audience, who this is going to be designed for, and helps them work out a whole bunch of issues related to packaging. Here we go. Publications. My stars, come on.
All right, so
Take it, gang.
Publications. There's a few things we do in publications. One of our main intentions in publication class is to make the student body aware of events that are going on throughout the school. If you drop by the high school, you'll see several posters along the walls. And those are made in our publications class. I know, for example, we have recognized students for various things, such as the winner of Mr. Easthampton. I knew that.
And it was a gem.
And we've also recognized various members of the school. For example, we've recognized freshmen to make their presence in the high school more aware, create more relationships between students, as well as focusing on methods of creating visual displays as to provide information in a helpful and informative way, while also being visually pleasing. I also know that one other project that we did involved public service announcements, where important matters would be brought into a media format, and students would pick out an issue that was important to them, and they would create a series of posters and a PowerPoint presentation in order to creatively address those issues while also trying to make a difference. And then the main focus of the publication class, although all matters are important, it's always great to have a yearbook. So I think I'll let some of my colleagues talk about the yearbook program here.
So as you can see, this photo on there actually went to a sponsor poster that I actually created, went around the school showing when the students can go and pick up their yearbooks that they purchased. But that's our publications class, well, one of them, and that's the band side actually. But getting away from that, what we do is basically we go to different events throughout the school year. We go to the senior outing, dog show, dances, prom, homecoming, just all those main events. We take those photos, we put them into the yearbook. That way, when the seniors leave, they always have something to look back upon. Along with their first couple of pages is their pages, so that'll in color though, that'll from themselves with their senior portraits. And then it has their black and white throughout the rest of the book. We get business. Without any businesses, we can't really make a yearbook. It costs a lot to make the yearbook. So the businesses, we go around and ask them if they want to sponsor it. And if they sponsor it, they can pick a size number or a size of their page, of an eighth, a fourth, half, and a full page. And they can donate money, which would basically be buying it, but we say it's donating. And they donate and they get a part of the page. And it's just to sponsor us, for us to be able to buy the yearbooks for the students. You can go now.
Thank you. All right. So the Arts Festival is another thing that I sort of manage along with the studio art teacher. And I get funding from ELF, very generous funding, and I take students throughout the year, as does Mr. Rathbun, to Jean-Pierre Posh at Eastmont Framing, and he helps kids frame their artwork, which is a really big deal. So they're always blown away by how the work is transformed, and that's fun to see. So one thing is to make the work, but then to have it really be professionally framed is just great. So, and they really enjoy it a lot. So we do that, and then we put together a show with drama, with the jazz band. We take over all of the Old Town Hall, thanks to a lot of generosity from everybody there. They're extremely gracious and helpful, and they love having the students come in. So it seems to be a great pleasure for them, which is a big plus. So it's a great event. Families come, and it's a lot of fun. And students get a taste of what it's like to be an artist for one little tiny period of life, to feel what it's like, to have their work on display, to have people come and admire it and look at it. I had a bunch of students write artist statements, and that really helps. It helped me to see what their motivations were, what their interests were, why they did this particular work, and it was a lot of fun. So this is what Connor was speaking about, the public service project in publications class, and this was a very passionate piece that a student did about an enforceable dress code. So she is very interested in, she actually has been talking to other students about dressing appropriately, and actually dragged one young woman to the nurse to call her mom. And her mom came with a new skirt for her. I was pretty impressed. Another multimedia project was another PSA. So I'm really interested in students doing work about social issues and about defining issues that really concern them. And this was a project on bullying that I thought was really powerful. It involved Mr. Carrier in a wig on the roof, which was very interesting as the suicidal student. So Mr. Carrier appears in a lot of our student videos. I have to say, he's very generous with his time. So essentially what we all do in technology is work on developing these essential 21st century skills. We work on creative problem solving, critical thinking, through project-based learning. So these are our primary foci? Focuses? No. Anyway, that's what we do. Any questions?
No questions?
Questions?
No questions? I have a question for you guys. The video clip, why did they run most of it backwards? What did that do for you? Did it suggest anything? Did it make you associate with watching it a different way than if you were just sitting there watching something and being entertained? Then it served its purpose. I also I associate it with reverse engineering. To give something that's completed or to give a set of rules or a problem or an issue, and then to have someone take it apart and work backwards through it is a great way to teach with the hands-on skills. Take it, Ash.
Thank you very much. That was an excellent. We got a very good overview tonight of the technology department and very much appreciate the work you all put into it. Thank you.
Actually, I do have a question.
Oh, now, LaDonna does have a question.
Okay.
You mentioned wood tech is going to be more design technology next year. How about metal tech, the metal class? What's the plan for that?
Well, I guess as I said, the fabrication lab is going to be an access point for the facilitation of using wood and metal and plastic and computers and numerically controlled machines to solve problems, real world problems and design problems or selected problems or projects that the kids will work on. They will have access to the equipment so that they can work within the boundaries of whatever concept or tools they need to solve the problem. To take the space and a curriculum to dedicate that to do more of what we're doing now seems like a shame of the space and the potential that we're going to have, you know? I mean, I said it before and I don't say it lightly, many of the things in the world today that these kids use and they have and they kind of count on are going to be obsolete by the time they're in the marketplace working to purchase these things. So they're going to have to keep pace. And to keep pace, instead of teaching time-accepted rigors, we're going to have to use some of those rigors to challenge them to think outside the box and in different ways. Did I answer that?
So it's basically being incorporated into the whole program as well?
I would say, will students sign up for wood technology or metal technology or welding anymore? No, it's going to be a much bigger, a broader based, comprehensive study of things, real world things.
That's wonderful.
But still that hands-on approach.
That's, yeah.
Now, Connor, I know.
I'm short scripted tonight. They made me promise. I've only got it. So.
That's good. All right, thank you very much.
Say real quick, Connor, I know you're a junior. Are you all juniors? Adam, you're, okay.
Thank you.
Nicely done.
Can I call her out while she's here? I know Mrs. Rogers didn't say anything, but while you are actually here, I just want to congratulate you on the award you won this year.
Thank you.
So while you actually came to our meeting, congratulations.
The Teacher Excellence Award.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Great.
Well done.
Bring it those other cords yours.
And as we shared earlier, as anxious as you may be to stay, we've seen the pace that we're going at, so if you have other matters to attend to tonight, we'll understand. But thank you for coming, and we look forward to seeing, give that back to me. We look forward to seeing where we are with our STEM-related programs next year. Thank you very much. Okay, I think for the moment, we're going to press on and see how far we get. But we have a couple of important items that we're going to devote more time to than others. So, subcommittee reports, finance subcommittee.
We don't have a report, but I will let you know something's be coming. They did receive one proposal for the school lunch program from Chartwell's. So by our next meeting, by next week, evidently, we will be getting the price proposal portion of it.
Chartwell's is the only one to put in
Yes.
to respond to the RFP.
Yes. Yep. But according to Andy, it definitely looks, the proposal looks realistic, and he's suggesting that we move forward with it, but we will be receiving that, so.
So I'm sorry, do other folks have questions? Because I have questions about that. But is the
We just heard about this today.
Right.
Today was the opening of the proposals.
But the deadline for submission of proposals is now passed.
Correct.
We don't anticipate
No,
getting.
there will be no more.
There will be no
Absolutely
more.
no
So
more.
I guess, realistic or otherwise, one of the challenges with outsourcing materials is when you get to a point where I think at some point we have to explore why there's no competition to provide the service. If the theory, and I think in the past, certainly I know that I've expressed some ambivalence about moving in this model. One of the benefits of this model is that people will compete for the opportunity to provide this service to Easthampton, and that Easthampton will benefit from that competition. So I'm not asking this of anyone individually, but I think we as a group should get some informed opinion about whether this is a trend in other districts that are doing this, and that they're also finding that there's only one company that's bidding. It makes me very nervous. I don't know enough about this, and I don't pretend to be an expert in the field of food service, but it just strikes me that if the theory is that people are going to compete for our business and we're going to get a better quality product for our students at a better price, if there's only one firm bidding, something doesn't seem like it's working the way it's supposed to. So I hope that we can do some research and figure out whether this is an aberration this one time through.
I believe in the beginning, Andy said there was another company that
There
took
was.
out a
There
proposal.
was
So there
another.
were two, but only one has submitted the final.
Yeah, and I'm not, maybe there's no fire, but there's at least a little bit of smoke when there's only one firm bidding on a government contract. I mean, I think anybody looking at anything that we discuss in the media today in a budget-sensitive period, it's important that we figure out what's going on there and what we need to do to be sure that it looks good going forward. Okay. Policy Review Subcommittee, we have the Corey, yes?
Changes to our core requirements that you have in your packet were necessitated by state mandates. So the changes that you see highlighted in yellow and red are, I didn't feel were worthy of meeting in a policy subcommittee meeting because they weren't mandated by the state. So they seem pretty straightforward and not very significant. So if nobody has any questions, I'd like to just move forward with the changes.
This will be the
First reading.
first reading tonight, right?
Right.
So everyone's had a chance to look over these new requirements. Is there anyone that has any questions? Can I get a motion?
So a motion to approve the first reading of the quarry requirements policy GBL-R.
Thank you. Second? Second. Motion made and seconded to approve the first reading. Any further comments? All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
No other comments.
Be back on again, Lori.
There's no CES update.
Okay. All right. So the budget override discussion, I guess I'm thinking out loud here at this moment about whether we want to I know that we have at least one person here who I think is interested in speaking on this, but I want to give it the benefit of time. I wonder if I could, I'm just going to go through the superintendent evaluation piece to get that out of the way so that we have less sort of lying behind that. Are there any objections to skipping out of order there? Concern? Yes.
Well, it just might be that, our one audience member
Okay.
might like to have that.
Okay. My only reason for suggesting this is I don't want the conversation that I think is an important one for us to have about the discussion to be limited by the people's sense that, well, there's a lot more that we have to get done tonight. So let's shortened up, but I want to encourage folks, let's have a free and frank discussion about the budget over right here, okay? We have notes from, you have your own notes from the previous meeting that we had with the committee on finance from the city council. I think there was some pretty strong urging for us in terms of what to be thinking about. Are there responses, thoughts that people have in terms of their reaction to that conversation? And if, as we were urged to, anyone wants to consider any change in our current recommendation to the city council.
I go back to the thought, or to the suggestion that Deb had that kind of turned me into this whole proposal, is that this is a vision. So I personally would like to see the one amount on the ballot for the 1.4, because I don't think we're looking for just an amount just to fill this gap for this year. We're looking for something that's going to serve us on a go-forward basis. We're looking for that extra bit of money. So I'm having a hard time trying to figure out how we could separate this and how we could bring it down to $1 million.
Thank you. Other comments?
I tend to agree. It just seems as though we don't want to lose the investment portion of this in our future and supporting our vision. And other than that, it seems like we would be nickel and diming some of these other restoration items, which doesn't seem like it would yield any sort of significant change to the overall number. And I'm not sure that that's necessary. I think it's been scrutinized to the hilt and reviewed by dozens of people and studied and rehashed, and it just seems like it's as lean and mean as it could be in terms of our restoration and what's really critical. And we are passionate about our future and investing in our schools and doing the best we can for our students. And for that reason, I'd like to hold firm on what we feel is really important for us for the future.
I felt that we had discussed this topic rather thoroughly at the meeting before we went to meet with the city council. So I agree that I feel that we should hold to this one amount. I do, being present as we all were at the joint meeting with the city council, I will not be surprised if the financial committee recommends to the whole council that we may be overreaching or that we may be asking for too much. So I don't know what kind of support we will eventually get from the total city council. We already know that one member would not vote for the city budget because he said too much money was spent on the schools. He voted to not accept the mayor's budget. So I know that that is out there and that is being put out there, which is unfortunate because it's in the environment now. And I don't know how we will turn that around. I don't think it's impossible. But I still hold to that we feel strongly about what we are asking for, and we feel strongly that we have looked at this very carefully. This is not just a off the top of our heads idea. And I would feel very uncomfortable at this point going in and saying, yes, I guess we were asking for too much. Because we are. Well, so I just don't, I would like to see us stick with the amount we have originally prepared for.
I agree with all three of what you said, and I go back to the one question or two question, the same argument that we talked about in our last meeting about just having one question, because I feel that the language on the ballot is going to be too confusing if we add two questions, and it's not going to be specific enough to explain what we're asking for.
Will be exactly the same on each question.
Language will be the same.
Right.
Exactly. And it's, like I said, it's not going to explain restoration and investment. So in that sense, I think it's going to be confusing, and, you know, you might get a vote, or they might just, oh, I'll just pick one instead of the other, because I'm unclear what's, you know, being done here. So that's, you know, that's my feeling on one or two questions, and like I said, I agree with everything you just said.
I agree with that, and any taxpayers that were not clear on what the two amounts would be would pick the lower one, which just is not, would not be helpful. And I also agree with Nancy, it's not good to change the amount. I know I was not there that evening, so I don't have the paperwork you all do, but we have changed the amount, and this final amount that we presented last week has been changed, as a couple people said here. And if we change it again, it's just going to make us look wishy-washy. And we're not wishy-washy. We're trying to work with a budget, and I think that we need to stick to the budget that we have and say this is what we want, because it is what we want, for all the reasons we discussed it.
Nancy, can I ask you, because I know you had brought it up, can I ask you how you feel? Because I don't know if you would prefer to see, well, I'd like to get a little money if we had two questions, or if we lowered it, there's a chance to get a little money. Can you weigh in to how we're thinking, like we want to stick with a 1.4 and just go for it?
No, I certainly agree with everything that's been said here this evening, and in particular, I agree with the process that we've engaged in. So we've had many conversations. We've looked at the numbers very carefully. I've presented to you all the data that I possibly could, and I've presented it in several different forms. So I feel comfortable with your decision to go forward with the one question. I think everything that you've said tonight makes sense to me clearly. And I'm in agreement with everything that everyone said here this evening. Yes.
Are there any other comments?
Just the last thing I'm going to say, I think everyone here in the school committee could speak to this 1.4 million. And I think that just shows that we've worked on this with the administrative and the whole district. And again, we're not being wishy-washy on the amount, because we know what we need, we know what the investment will be for us in the future. And I think it says a lot that any of us could speak exactly the same to that number if we were asked.
I would ask that, and I know there's only a few people here, and I don't know how many folks will get to see this program as this process moves forward, or if you know, sometimes we get phone calls from folks in the local media afterwards asking for further explanation of what was said here. I find it, you know, I accept that this is an extraordinary challenge, and I don't want to, you know, try to slay too many sort of issues in absentia. But I want to point out a couple of concerns, and Nancy, I think you've alluded to one that's important, but I also think people will see in the context of the comment there, the decision to suggest, as has been suggested before by city councilor, that that the schools have always benefited greatly, despite the evidence that's plainly available. You can say what you want to say, but then when you look at the facts of the impact on the school system over the last decade, they tell a different story. So there's a separation, I'll put it that way, between what that particular city councilor is saying and what the evidence shows. And I trust the voters in the city of Easthampton to be able to distinguish between what's being said and what evidence shows. I think another point that has been made, and I want to get ahead of this as well, is that it's unfortunate whenever someone quotes the number 22% to me as a suggestion that there's 22% of the community that has a direct interest in the well-being of the school system. That's a divisive approach to suggest that the only reason that you have an interest in the school system is if you have a child in it. And I think I want to caution anyone who's concerned about this budget override that you can vote against this. I hope you'll vote in favor of it because I think we've laid out what this will mean for the students in Easthampton. But I would caution people against using that kind of approach to the conversation. It seems to me that it moves away from the merits of a finely detailed presentation of exactly how these funds would be used to enrich the lives of the children in the community. And that is ultimately our task, is to advocate on behalf of the children that we have now and the children that we expect to have next year and 5 years from now. So I hope that we'll talk about the 100% of the community that lives in the same place as where these school children learn and grow. And that we hope to actually keep more and more of the children who live here learning and growing here in the city school system. I think that we started by looking immediately, I know that I started by looking immediately at the gap issue, and that I had grown tired in the short time that I had been on the school committee of seeing us look at what it would take to provide level service and finding that we didn't have the resources. But I was inspired by the comments of many of you, and I think I've mentioned this before, to look beyond just sort of trying to fix things for 1 year, and to really think in terms of the legacy that we want to leave as a school committee this year, including the mayor, who's not here this evening, but I know has expressed his desire to leave a strong legacy, and I think that this is a key measure of the kind of legacy that will be left for the succeeding administration here, is to put the school system on a sound footing. So I echo the comments that have been made by other folks. I hope that the conversation as it moves forward will be constructive, and even if we end up agreeing to disagree, that we don't agree to divide ourselves over the quality of the educational experience that we want our children to have. I would like to think that a community like Easthampton, in fact I do think it, it's not that I would like to think it, I think the overwhelming majority of people in this community believe that the single greatest measure of the health of our community is the quality of the schooling we provide for the children. And I think that that argument on its merits can and will carry the day. So unless there are other comments, I know that we have someone here, you perhaps want to just witness what we've said, but I don't know if you want to add any thoughts to what we've said so far? Or?
Well, the only thing I think I like to comment is like that, first of all, I want to applaud you for your vision. I mean, I really think it's great to...
Mr. Marks, can I just ask, just to be sure, so that anyone at home listening, you get...
Just to restate, I want to applaud you for the vision, because I really think not only as a father of children in the school district, but I think for all the children, like to really have a visionary outlook, because education, I think, is so important. Because again, we're talking about the future, not only of Easthampton, but I mean the future of our country. I mean, like what we put in our education is what we get out of it. I mean, and if you don't put anything in there, you won't get a lot out of it. So that's one thing. And Peter, I agree with you 100% about the 22% figure, because again, it is much more than just the parents who are actually involved. Because again, I think a great school also would give us a great community. I think if students are actually in school, they're engaged and everything, and really feel like proud of their school and everything, they're far less likely to drop out, far less likely to skip school and do some mischief and other things, and to really be more engaged in the community and maybe assist actually in social projects and everything. And I think the impact is so much bigger than just a classroom. And as you all know, I mean, I will be ready to go out and talk to the voters. I mean, that's why I'm always here. And if we get this through the city council, I'll be there. So thank you for all your work.
Thank you. Are there any last comments?
This past week with graduation, and I was looking at the yearbook, and all the features and presentations, and this is an exciting time of year for all of the students, because they really get to show their best. And one thing that really struck me, looking through the yearbook at the class of 2012, and the younger classes too, is the diversity that this district serves. And whether it's the ethnic diversity or the ability diversity, or anything in between, this district, as small as it is, really has a diverse student population. And I think this budget also is able to address, as we do through the evaluations and everything else, all those various diversities within our school system. So as you were speaking, it just put me to mind when I was reviewing the yearbook. Again, I'm very proud of the school district. I've probably said it 10,000 times tonight, but for a small district, we're very diverse. And we do an awful lot for all of those students. And it's important that we support that going forward.
All right, I encourage. Yes.
Just I know I got these dates down when we were at the joint meeting, but
The 18th.
just to clarify, what is the date of the city council meeting when they will vote on whether to put this override question on the ballot?
So the dates that I have is that there is a subcommittee on finance meeting where they vote their recommendation to the city council is June 18th.
Okay.
Correct? Does that jive with other
All right,
people's?
I have that.
And then I have the city council public hearing and vote is on July 11th.
Okay.
Apologize, I don't have the time for each of those. I would
I
assume
think they
6
meet
o'clock.
at 6.
6 o'clock each time.
So the subcommittee meeting is on the June 18th. So we need to be present at that. Is
Because
that
there will be an
correct?
opportunity for public speak at that meeting.
And we're also getting ready to have a meeting scheduled for June 19th, is that?
Yes, we're going to talk about that next.
Okay.
I just wanted to add that Madonna and I have a school building committee meeting on June 18th also. So we have a conflict. Oh, and Nancy.
So does
of
Mayor,
course.
the mayor also.
The mayor
Oh,
does.
Mayor. There's 4 of us.
And I do.
Oh, there's 5
So-
of us.
Right, but you know what? I think, I haven't seen the agenda yet for that meeting, and I think once we see the agenda for that, perhaps we,
We can make it to both.
yeah.
One's at 6, ours SPC is 6:30.
Yeah, unless we can convince them to have it at 7.
Right. So maybe what I would recommend is seeing if Mike Burley would entertain the suggestion of scheduling that meeting at 7. It may be too late to do that. But
Not necessarily.
can I? You're persuasive.
Oh, do you want me to do that?
Would you be willing to?
Sure. I'll
Thank
do
you.
that. Yes, I didn't realize what you were.
Sometimes I don't realize what I'm doing either.
At the July 18th, at
July
the
11th.
June 18th subcommittee meeting, we are the public.
Yes, with the public at that.
Now, are we, I mean, it sounds like we're planning to be there, a lot of us.
Yep.
So are you planning to speak to tell them that we are not changing our proposal? Or?
Yes,
Okay.
and more.
I guess we didn't get to that final point in our discussion, did we?
Right. I think my plan as it stands now, in support of anyone else who wants to speak, and is to inform them that we listened, we deliberated. I spent a lot of time over the last week thinking about what was said, as I think everyone here has indicated. And so we'll share that fact, that we remain unanimous in our support. All those present. Yeah. There you go. Good suggestion. You want to make a motion?
Sure, I move that we not change our proposal to city council for our override 1.4.
Right, so we have a motion to reaffirm
Reaffirm the
our recommendation.
$1,407,456 for the override proposal.
Second.
Second. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, so I will at a minimum report that we are unanimous in our affirmation that this Easthampton investment and recovery plan for our public school system is still our plan. And then, I'm going to try to be brief, but I think I will say a bit more than just that fact.
And remind them that cities are defined by their school systems.
and you get out. what
Yeah,
you
now
want.
remember the last time I said anyone who had any suggestions could email me, and then you left me my own devices. So if I don't get it right, make sure you shoot me a note, and I'll make sure to use the best that's there. You can get really discouraged, and I know that and that's not about personal stuff, although, the most random things come up in relation to this. And I really want to urge people to focus on what's relevant and not on what's irrelevant. But at the end of the day, I think, and someone said this to me, that they said, you know what, I'm not sure what the outcome will be, but I'm absolutely sure that you have to ask. You have to ask the city to support its children. You can't decide not to ask out of fear. You get two options here, hope or fear. Let's play from a position of hope.
I think that will be actually the results. I think this will go.
Yes. Okay. So I want to review what we have here. And you certainly do not need to stay. You guys are just staying. Do you have more? Do you have to stay? I feel like you got school in the morning. Handbook. Okay. But anyway, Mr. Mark, if you need to go, please have a great night. Thank you. All right. So here's the situation. You have our evaluation form here.
Yes.
You also have.
Peter, could I ask you, or just a point of reference? We asked probably if it's possible to move the handbook up. Is it possible to?
Oh, sure. We can
So
move
we
it
could
anywhere
do
we
that
want.
now.
Anywhere we want.
And then, okay. And then they don't need to stay to the very end.
Oh, why not?
They have had very, very
A little
busy
anxious,
days.
thank you. It's been a long couple of weeks. So.
Yeah.
I'm Ann Borgard. If you don't know, I'm the assistant principal at the high school, and I'm a member of the Dropout Prevention Committee. And our Dropout Prevention Committee met periodically throughout the year to examine data and implement programs in an attempt to reduce the dropout rate at Easthampton High School. Research shows that failures in core classes and poor attendance are two of the strongest indicators that a student is at risk for dropping out. We addressed the attendance policy 2 years ago. We strengthened that policy. We have seen an increase in our attendance rate as a result of that. But we also began examining course failures, identifying course failures as an issue as well. From 2008 to 2011, 35 students dropped out of Easthampton High School. 19 of those 35 students repeated grade 9. 4 of those students repeated grade 9 twice. Okay, and then it tends to go down a little bit at that point. We had 2 that were repeated grade 10 and 3 grade 12 repeaters. So 25 out of 35 of the students who did drop out of high school repeated a grade. It was evident that interventions needed to be put in place for our incoming freshmen, and credit recovery opportunities needed to be offered for all students in order to keep students on track for graduation and reduce the risk for dropping out. Whitebrook Middle School guidance counselor Christina Davidson implemented a program with 8th graders who were at risk, and she worked with them throughout the year. Because of her interventions, those students were all promoted to grade 9, where our school adjustment counselor, George Sampson, took over working with that group of students. Some of them were so successful that they were removed from the group at the end of the first semester, and other students were added on who were not being successful in the first semester. So that's a work in progress, but we have seen some success with the implementation of that program. In addition to, we always have teachers staying after school to offer extra help, but remediation and enrichment opportunities are offered through after school through both the Academic Support Grant and the 21st Century Grant. We've also asked our team leaders to analyze failure rates within departments and develop strategies to increase success among our students. Credit recovery has traditionally been limited to summer school, but because of our collaboration with the Hampshire Educational Collaborative and the Reunion Center, who presented here, I think the last time I was here, students